The NLMC, which exists thanks to the support of the Nelson Mullins, Riley, and Scarborough Center on Professionalism, is incredibly thankful to the Colorado Supreme Court and the University of Denver Stern College of Law for hosting this three-day event. Having the conference, oh yes, let's give them a round of applause. Having the conference and tonight's reception in the beautiful Ralph Carr Judicial Center is a real treat. And I thank the Denver Bar Association and the Colorado Bar Association for sponsoring this evening's reception, along with Plum Creek Winery for providing us with delicious wine, and Unamas for beer and margaritas to properly celebrate Cinco de Mayo. I also thank LexisNexis for being our presenting sponsor for this conference, and to Willard Trigg O'Donnell for sponsoring our reception upstairs. We have so many sponsors, and I encourage you to see them. They're listed in our program, they're out in an easel, out in the hall. These entities all generously provided support for our conference. Now, I would like to thank the group I affectionately call our Colorado crew. These people could please stand. John Baker, where are you, John? Mike Massey. Yes, that's well deserved. John Farrell, where are you? Are you here or are you just so busy doing things? There you go. And Andy Frohart. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate all you've done. Sorry? Linnea. Oh, Linnea, I'm so sorry. Linnea. Anyone else? And Lauren Eisner. All right, anybody else? I have to say, these individuals have put in countless hours planning, considering every logistical detail, and personalizing this event in a distinctly Colorado way, which I appreciate. If you enjoy these 3 days as much as I expect you will, please take a moment to personally thank these folks before you leave. This event would not have happened but for their hard work. I would also like to recognize the executive members of the National Legal Mentoring Consortium and ask them to please stand. I know your members are here. Ida, Nate, Jane, Catery's here somewhere, Sharon, John, Lori. Does anyone know? These people are not just colleagues, but dear friends to me, some of which I met at our first conference in 2008 in Columbia, South Carolina. They are passionate about the importance of mentoring, have masterfully led programs of their own, and are here to share what they have learned. During your time here, please seek these people out. They will be happy to share what they know and help you with your own mentoring efforts. We have a tremendous program prepared. It started earlier today with the nuts and bolts session, and continues tonight with what I am sure will be an inspiring address from ABA President Paulette Brown. I cannot wait to hear her remarks as well as each of the other remaining presentations on our conference agenda. We will discuss what the best mentors do and how they become the best. We will learn how mentoring can promote diversity and inclusion. And we will discuss how mentoring can bolster resilience and prepare individuals for success in the future practice of law. Mentoring has the power to impact the legal profession in profound ways. As the administrator of the Supreme Court of Ohio's Lawyer-to-Lawyer Mentoring Program, I know this to be true. I see this in the responses to our end-of-term surveys, in the participants who eagerly volunteer to promote our program, and in the personal thank you notes received from time to time from mentors and new lawyers who participated. It is my hope by the end of this conference, each of you will be reminded or introduced to the profoundness of mentoring, and that this bolsters you in whatever your next steps are. Whether you are trying to garner leadership and resources to start a program of your own, or you are trying to improve a program that has been running for several years. Everyone here is a part of the National Legal Mentoring Movement. Whether you are a mentoring veteran or a newcomer, I encourage you to enjoy this time, to network, to learn from each other, to be honest and open about your accomplishments and your challenges, and continue the conversation long after this conference ends. Thank you. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Dean Martin Katz from the University of Denver Stern College of Law. Dean Katz specializes in anti-discrimination law, both within constitutional law and employment law. He has lectured extensively on changes in legal education, as well as in anti-discrimination law, free speech and religion, separation of powers, defamation, and employment-related intellectual property law. National Jurist selected him as one of their top 10 most influential people in legal education in 2013, 2014, and 2015. So maybe you can tell us how that happened, but congratulations, that's wonderful. Prior to teaching full-time, Dean Katz was a partner in the employment law group at Davis, Graham & Stubbs and a law clerk to the Honorable David M. Ebel of the U.S. Court of Appeals. Dean Katz, most importantly for us here tonight, has been extremely supportive of the mentoring program at Denver Stern College of Law. And it is my pleasure, please join me in welcoming Dean Katz.
Thank you. So this is pretty fun because so often when we think about mentoring, we actually have to persuade people to focus on the value that gets provided by that and the time that they would invest in that. And this is really fun because I am preaching to the converted here, which is just terrific. So all of you know and understand that basically, I don't know about your experience, I have yet to find a successful person in the world who, if you spend more than 10 minutes speaking to them about how they got to where they got, isn't going to tell you a story about a mentor. You understand this, you understand the power of it. You also understand probably in your own life how that worked. This is actually a particularly fun crowd for me because a number of my mentors are actually in this crowd. I was actually explaining earlier that I was fortunate enough, and this was just blind, stupid luck, but I chose the firm that I decided to practice at based on a particular mentor and a culture of mentoring, and it ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made. So now I actually tell my students, just don't stumble into that, do it intentionally. So I'm thrilled that you're all here. Our theme, which makes perfect sense, is mentoring and how it is now more important than ever. We see this particularly in the context of what I just mentioned, right? I was lucky enough, like many of us, to come out of law school and end up with an employer who saw part of their role as mentoring the next generation of attorneys. Unfortunately, that is becoming increasingly rare within the legal profession, which means that what we need to do as a profession is find ways to make sure that we fill those gaps. So it really is more important than ever. So I'm really excited that we can host this in Denver. This is the first time that the National Law Mentoring Conference has been held west of the Mississippi. So we're thrilled to be able to do this here. We have an absolutely wonderful group of speakers lined up. including Paulette Brown, president of the ABA. We're so glad you're here with us. Michael Hunter Schwartz, dean and professor of law at the William H. Bowen School of Law. Welcome, Michael. Ida Abbott, a noted legal consultant, and Karen Hester from the Center for Legal Inclusiveness. It's a great lineup. So our plenary sessions will range from the nuts and bolts of how to create a legal mentoring system to presentations on mentoring with diversity and inclusiveness. We have attendees from all over the country, and in fact all over the world. We have attendees from Brazil. Denver Law and its professional mentoring program is very proud to be co-hosting this year's conference with a number of terrific partners. The Colorado Supreme Court and its CAMP program, the Nelson, Mullins, Riley, and Scarborough Center on Professionalism, and the National Legal Mentoring Consortium. We're really glad to be able to partner with you on this. So one of the things when we go into legal education, there's really two focuses, and if we just keep our eye on these things, we can accomplish a whole lot. So the first is really a focus on our students and on bringing the next group of folks into our profession. That's why we do this. In fact, if you think about it, right, that's what distinguishes us as a profession from just another job. We care deeply about what the next generation of our profession looks like and how they're going to do and their success. So you mentioned whatever it might take to be considered influential in legal education. I would say actually, in some senses it's remarkably simple, and I bet Michael, you have one of these on your desk too. It's a little sign that says, and this would be good for our students because ... And it really is, it's that simple, and that's what mentoring is about. This is what is good for our students, and this is what is good for the next generation of lawyers. The other thing that we learn in the Legal Academy is that very few wheels actually need reinventing, that we can accomplish much more if we learn from each other. So I was really fortunate when I took the job as dean at Denver Law to get to work with Mike Massey and what's become the Denver Crew, I think you called it. It's a great name for the crew. Colorado Crew. Well, Denver Crew. All right. So Mike, when we first got started, dreamed up this concept. What if we started a program where every student who walks in the building gets a mentor assigned to them for the 3 years that they're in the building and the 2 years after they leave the building? Now, this seemed like a pretty audacious thing. In fairness, Mike, I think I predicted it was going to take at least 10 years to make that happen. But literally 5 years later, Mike and the Colorado Crew have made this happen. And they've done so in large part because of many of the folks in this room. There is no way that we could create a program like this without support from the courts and the Denver legal profession. So we've learned some lessons in this that are hopefully useful, but we really look forward to learning from all of you the lessons that you've learned, avoiding recreating wheels and making sure that we create something that feels and is understood as best practices that any school and any city can do in terms of making sure that the next generation that comes into our profession is fully prepared and supported. So I'm just thrilled to be able to host this conference. I know that we are going to take major steps forward in terms of getting to that point. And I really look forward to learning a lot more from all of you. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Okay, and now it is my pleasure to introduce Chief Justice Rice. Chief Justice Rice has played every role in the legal profession. She has been a law clerk for a federal judge, a public defender, a prosecutor, U.S. attorney, law professor at both Denver law schools, and a trial judge. And of course, now she is a justice of the Supreme Court and now chief of this court. Chief Justice Rice is an active member of the Denver Bar Association, the Colorado Bar Association, and the Women's Bar Associations. She has been tremendously supportive of the CAMP program here. That's the Colorado Attorney Mentoring Program. And I have heard on good authority that she is a longtime mentor for every clerk that has served her throughout her tenure on the trial court bench and now at the Supreme Court. And then finally, I hear she is a mother of a teenage daughter, which I think is great to acknowledge right here before the weekend of Mother's Day. So please join me in welcoming Chief Justice Rice.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to take a very short period of time to welcome you here and also tell you about your surroundings because you're in the most wonderful courthouse you'll ever be in, and I want to talk about it in San Sippel. So this is the Ralph Carr Center, and it's named after Governor Ralph Carr, who was a governor in Colorado during World War II. And the reason we named this center after him, this building and the one next door, is because he was a governor who, due to his own personal convictions, chose not to intern Japanese Americans during World War II. And you need to understand, in the West, there were interning Japanese Americans all around Wyoming, New Mexico, Nebraska. And Colorado did indeed have an internship camp, but Ralph Carr did not intern Colorado Japanese Americans. And for this, he is so dearly beloved, still to this day. Unfortunately, he basically lost his political career. He was voted out. It was a true act of courage, and we like very much to be able to celebrate him by naming this center after him. So let's talk about this building. A number of people have asked me, how in the world did you get it built? And it was actually a miracle, I have to tell you. The stars totally aligned. I can talk to you about the financing, but it's probably not good after dinner conversation. But if anybody wants to hear about it, I can tell all of you about it. It was really quite something. You should know, because all of you probably who are not from Denver flew into DIA, the Denver International Airport, and you saw that interesting airport design with the tents and everything. That was designed by a very famous architect by the name of Kurt Fentress. Kurt Fentress was a very nice guy, and we chose him to design this center as well. And we were lucky enough that he said yes. So we had this unbelievable, ultimate, world-class architect design this building. So I think when you walk around, you see things, you say, wow, that's so nice. I mean, this is really a nice building, and that's because Kurt Fentress helped us so much. Now, one of the things that was really interesting for all of us in the course of designing this building is Kurt wanted to have a client. It was hard to design a building without a client, and so he chose the Supreme Court as his client, which was fun for us because we would go over and have dinner at his shop, and he would show us mock-ups of how he wanted things, and we'd kind of take these little votes, and I'm not sure that he ever actually did what we voted on, but we got to pretend like we had a very big input. And we did in lots of ways. For those of you who haven't been up to the 4th floor, I wish you would go up there because you can see how there's kind of a window up there, but you can't see out of it from this 1st floor. If you go up on the 4th floor, you will see the most magnificent view of the Denver Capitol, which is just right over that way, half a block away. Kurt wanted to make this building so that it faced the mountains, Colorado and the mountains. And the court basically said, no, what we want to do is have a connection between our branch, the judicial branch, and the executive and the legislative branch. We want to really literally be looking at each other, which is the way it worked. If you go up there, you are absolutely stunned Of course, then the judges got the mountain view, and that wasn't so bad, because we're over on, but I don't usually tell that part of the story. So just think about all that wonderful transparency. It's really very nice. Now, a couple of other things. In Colorado, excuse me, when you build a building with state money, 1% of that state money has to go to public art. 1%. It's an interesting statute. I don't know how many states have that. So if you came in at DIA, you also noted that blue horse out there with those weird red eyes that everybody's shaking their heads. Yes, thank you so much. That is public art. Cost a lot of money. When we built this building, because it was about a $200 million building, we had about $2 million worth of public art money that had to be spent. And so as you look around, you will see lots and lots of art. And the reason is that we had the money to buy it. We had a committee. I was on the committee. We have pamphlets, we have folders, we tell you about it. There's an awful lot of public art in the law library. We put an awful lot of it in that room. We put a lot of public art in these little alcoves on the second, third, and fourth floor. There's actually a lot of good public art over there where the caterers are set up. So go back over there and check it out. There's a lot of good public art going down these hallways. So we like to think of this courthouse as a museum. And it truly is. It's a beautiful building. Now, the final thing I want to tell you about, because I don't want to take too much time from President Brown, is our Learning Center. You can see it. It's right over there. When we got the contract and we knew that we were going to be able to build a new building, we didn't want to just reproduce everybody's courthouse, your dad's courthouse. We wanted something that was new and interesting. So a group flew around and kind of saw what the latest ideas were. And we also were very aware that there was a very big lack of public education about the courts, the free branches of government, and how they interact. And out of that knowledge and that tour came this Learning Center. Now, if you do nothing else while you're here, go, please promise me that you'll go to the Learning Center, because it is unbelievable. It is an interactive center. It's built at about the 9th grade level. You go in and you see probably the funniest movie, right? You guys thought it was a great movie. I try to haul everybody over there, and lots of film clips and everything in a very amusing way to teach about the rule of law. And there are games, I think, that you will enjoy too. You can get to be a judge, sentence people. You can put on a robe, sit at the bench, have your picture taken, put it on Facebook. There are many, many children in Colorado who sit at the Supreme Court bench with their robes on and put that on Facebook. And we judges say, great, we want that to happen. We have had probably about 20,000 school kids in since this building has been developed. Kids come over to the Capitol right across the street, come right down here. One of the best compliments I've heard since I become Chief Justice is a kid came up to me and she says, this is more fun than the zoo. So I figured we have done something right. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to Colorado. We love to show off our state and we love to show off our building. We're very, very supportive of our camp program. John has been introducing himself as camp director for such a long time, and I love it. And Ryan, you're going to be a great new camp director. We on the court want to be as supportive as we possibly can. So welcome, everyone. Thank you. I haven't given the honor of being able to introduce our actual speaker for the evening, President Paulette Brown, who, interestingly enough, I've now seen for the 3rd time this year, which is great, and we're running around in the same bad circles, I guess. You were here for a diversity conference that we had, and then I saw you at the Conference of Chief Justices, and now you're back, and we very much appreciate you doing so. This must be about near the end of your year as president, 3 more months? Yeah, and I have been stunned at how hardworking you are, and really very, very impressed. For those of you who don't know President Brown, she's a partner at the law firm of Locke Lord. LLP, and has held any number of leadership positions. You know, I'm sure you have this all written down someplace in some program, right? So I'm not going to read it all to you, but she's a remarkable person. The thing that I personally can say that I've enjoyed the most is I think I've now heard you speak twice already, because I actually attended both of your speeches instead of going out and playing golf or whatever. And so I have been very interested in what you have to say about diversity and about the future of the profession and how we all need to work together to make this profession better than it is and as good as it can be. And so I'm stunned at how lucky we are to have President Brown here for this conference. I think it's just wonderful that you agreed to come. I know your schedule, and I'm just so pleased that you were able to do so. So I give you President Brown.
Good evening. Too much cake, too much chocolate. Good evening. It's really a privilege and an honor to be here, and it's really an important topic for me. I have to talk about mentoring because my son proclaims that I have 267 children. It's a real random number. I don't know where he got it from, but mentoring is very important. All of the things that were said earlier about how people don't invest in young lawyers like they did previously, but to me it starts so much sooner than that. The mentoring process. And if we are going to build a more diverse and inclusive legal profession, we have to look much further upstream for the new group of lawyers and start to mentor them at a very early age. And so, in my opinion, kindergarten is, oh yeah, I'm serious. I think we should start at kindergarten. And in fact, my Diversity and Inclusion 360 Commission, when we talk about pipeline, we are talking about kindergarten through 12th grade and then college, because if we can't keep them in school, they'll never make it to college, much less to law school. So we've got to start at a really young age, starting to mentor young people. And I'm going to skip around a little bit and just give you an example, because one of the things that I've been doing is I've been visiting boys and girls clubs. I've been to about 30 so far. And I have seen over time the impact that it's had on them, because so many of them are like me. I never knew any lawyers until I went to college. And so when they see other lawyers other than Judge Judy and Judge Mathis and these other fictional characters on TV, they have a better idea of what lawyers do and have an appreciation that it's something that they could possibly do as well. So it's just never too young. And there is in fact a young man who I met when he was 11th grade in high school. He is now a senior in college, about to go to law school. And we have communicated since. I met him at a program in DC. He lives in Chicago. And so it doesn't matter where you are. You can mentor people close up and from afar. But it is important for all of us to engage in this process if we really want to change, so that we won't be saying 10 years from now or even 5 years from now that the legal profession is the least diverse profession of all other professions. And I wonder if your friend, architect turned lawyer, realized that he was leaving a more diverse profession to come to a lesser diverse profession. I couldn't believe that architects are more diverse than lawyers, but they are. And so we have to really look deep into what's going on. I have been really privileged to have had so many mentors, and we didn't talk about it in kind of a formal sense back in, as we say, back in the day. But I had a lot of mentors, both men and women, and for the most part, they didn't realize they were mentoring me. But I would not have been able to be here if I did not have mentors who would tell me when I made a mistake, lead me back on the right way, because I was I joke about how I'm shocked that the ABA elected me to be president, because I really lacked diplomacy in so many ways, and generally what came up came out. And so I had some people to say, talk to me gently, that, and then I would quit things because I would get angry. And I came to learn from different mentors that you can't make a difference if you're not in the room. And so I've had mentors just to lead me and guide me in all sorts of ways. And so I think that it's really incumbent upon me and others to sort of pay it forward. So I think that all of us in the room, otherwise you wouldn't be here, understand that one of the most important tools to achieve diversity and inclusion in our profession is through mentoring. And that those who have mentors are more successful, and those who have sponsors are even more successful. And, people talk about how we should not maybe have special programs for certain groups of people, but, we don't stop to think about the fact that other groups of people, sometimes it is organic, that they develop organic relationships that other groups of people, because they are the outsiders, have not been able to do. So we have to be really intentional about our mentoring efforts and make sure that we build strong relationships with those who we are mentoring, and make sure we are open to everyone. And so it may not be the same for every individual, and I think that people should really have multiple mentors, because mentors provide different things for each individual. So I think that people should have mentors inside of their organizations, and importantly outside of their organizations. And I think that mentors are someone who a mentee should really be able to trust. And that is one of the things that I have found sometimes in law firms, is that people are assigned mentors, and that just does not always work, because that's like forcing sometimes somebody to have a child that does not want one. And so the relationship is pretty much doomed from the start. There's no trust, and there's no sense of responsibility on the part of the mentor to hold in confidences of the mentee. And so when things get a little rough, they blurt it out. And I've seen this firsthand, so I'm not just making things up. But, and so you have to be able to, and I like it sometimes when both parties, a person has said, yes, I want to be a mentor, as opposed to assigning someone to be a mentor. In almost every situation, that does not work. And also, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. The mentees have a responsibility too. And I really shouldn't tell you all this because it's terrible. When I was at one firm, I had two female mentees who were not really assigned, but kind of assigned. And they would put me in check if I went too long without having lunch with them, without having coffee with them. They would follow me around to the point where I started calling them my blonde stalkers. And so, but they made me understand what my responsibility was as a mentor. And so it is really a two-way street as to how it is we have to go about this process. And so as we think about mentoring and how to become more diverse and inclusive, we think about the law firm context again, and how so many firms talk about how they want to be more diverse and more inclusive, and they've been saying it for a long time. I talked to Ada a few minutes ago. I said, Ada, remember a long time ago, we can't even remember when it was that we were on a program together talking about this. And I saw Dave Collins, and he said, Paula, do you remember 30 years ago we started this diverse? I'm like, don't remind me. But we have to, and I'm glad this group is here, because we have to find ways to really accelerate what we do, because although I'll be still living 30 years from now, I'll be 95, and I don't know what kind of condition I'll be in. So I want to see vast improvement long before then, because we just can't wait. And so when people think about, they think about how wonderful they are, and all of us like to think that we're wonderful, and they're doing the right thing, but they're not really being intentional about it, and they will talk about how they really want diversity and inclusion, and they talk about how they're colorblind. Well, no. Being colorblind is not a good thing, because generally when you're colorblind, you only see white. And so it is not a good thing to be. And the other thing is that because, when you say you're colorblind, it leads to real inaction. You don't take the necessary action that you need to take to understand that race is a different dimension and how it affects different people, for example, and gender is a different dimension, and sexual orientation is a different dimension. So you have to appreciate all of those things. But what I like to think about first is what we may have in common with somebody else. So I told the guy in my firm, I said, you really need to get to know this other individual. He was white and the other person was Afro-Latino. And he looked at me and he said, like I was crazy. I said, just try it out. And so when he called the young man called me and said, why is he calling me and why does he want to take me to lunch? I said, just try it. He may turn out to be a good mentor. So when they went to lunch, they discovered that their children were involved in the same strange, odd sport. So immediately there was a connection. And so you have to go towards what is uncomfortable for you to get to a point where you need to be. And they developed a wonderful mentor-mentee relationship, and also through that developed a good working relationship where that partner was given, more experienced partner started giving a new partner more work and more experiences to do. So we have to, a lot of times, step outside of ourselves to do what we think is best. And the only way that we can do that is just to really push ourselves to what is uncomfortable and go to what is uncomfortable to achieve the results that we do. And think about, it's nothing wrong with having multiple mentors and mentees, and they don't have to look like you. So when I had the opportunity to co-chair a report called Visible Invisibility, Women of Color in Law Firms, and one of the things that we talked about a lot in that report is the isolation that women of color experience, and they are really they represent women of color represent less than 3% of all equity partners in law firms. And that has been a horrible statistic for a long time. And we continue to be the least represented in the legal profession. And so we did this report talking about how women of color leave their law firms almost 100% by the 5th year. And I'm going around the country, telling everybody this. And I thought about my own state of New Jersey, this is 2006, and thought about the fact that in the entire state, there were 3 African American female partners. And so in 2006, diversity, they didn't talk about inclusion, but it was like the flavor of the month. And so they were hiring all of these women, and they had no one. So we started the WOC mentoring group, Women of Color Mentoring Group. And what it did was, yes, I was mentoring them, but the important part was they were having peer-to-peer mentoring. And so we can't forget peer-to-peer mentoring and bottom-up mentoring too. There's all sorts of mentoring. And in fact, during the process and over these it's been 10 years now. Over these last 10 years, we meet once a quarter, third Friday. They have mentored me in ways that I would know. They've taught me things. I don't think that I would be using Twitter and Facebook and Vine and Instagram and all those things if I had not been with them and they weren't mentoring me. But it goes both ways. And so what has happened is that we don't exclude anyone, although it's called the Women of Color Mentoring Group. And with that, there was a young white male associate who asked me, can I be one of your children? And it's, of course, and what happened was other partners had really thrown him away. He's brilliant. But other partners had thrown him away because he lacked a little common sense. He was young. And it sometimes just really annoys me. I know everybody's interested in how many hours they can build. That's the bottom line, the bottom line, the bottom line. But if they look a little bit deeper, they will find that when you mentor people, they produce better. When you care about them, they produce more. And so you will increase your bottom line. People are too short-sighted, in my opinion. So, in his circumstance, he loved to ski. And skiing with him came first. He didn't get it. So somebody gave him assignment. They just asked what he was doing. He was off skiing for the weekend. So partners do what they do. I'm not giving him any more work. And furthermore, when their partners have lunch together, they talk about you. And they say, I gave this person something, he didn't do it right. I'm not giving him any more work. And it has a ripple effect, so no one else gives them any more work. And so the first time I had a circumstance with him, and I was in the office on Sunday. He was off skiing. I called him on his cell phone. I'm like, Matt, where are you? And he told me, I said, I'm in the office. I said, something's wrong with this picture. It shouldn't be this way. I'm the partner, you're the new associate. I'm in the office and you're out having fun. It never, ever, ever happened again. And all it took was that simple one-time conversation for him to get it, because he's smart. And so that was back in late 2005, 2006, and he is at his third place. He has moved from New Jersey to New York to Massachusetts, and he still calls me before he ever changes to another position. What should he do? So he is still my child, and he still skis to the point where at his wedding, instead of having numbers, he had ski resorts on the table. But, mentors, they need to be advocates and allies for people. And they really need to be able to throw themselves on the line if you have a good mentee and really advocate for that person. And, it really helps both sides to do things. And so what happens sometimes, though, as we think about mentoring, and I think that, as it's sometimes said, is that it's the biggest barrier to achieving diversity and inclusion, and that is implicit bias. And so sometimes, and all of us, we have some implicit bias, and when we don't think that we can maybe work with a particular person, or we don't think that we can be a mentor to a particular person. Sometimes a man thinks that he should not be a mentor to a female because what will people think about it? Or and sometimes people will think that even though you're their mentors, you might think that assuming women attorneys who are mothers may not want to be involved in particular cases. And I know that you've seen it time and time again where I'm doing you a favor by not giving you this case that's so complicated because you have children and I don't want to overburden you with this. And so we can't make that assumption, and we can't conclude that African American associate is too aggressive to deal with corporate clients, or that we only introduce Latino associates to only Spanish-speaking clients, and be inclined to use the gay male associates for clients who run interior decorating firms or restaurants. So but these are things that actually happen. I am not saying things hypothetically. These things actually happen. And then there's the benevolent discrimination bias, where mentors think that they are helping by not giving women, racial and ethnic diverse mentors tough assignments or direct criticism, or offering them challenging growth opportunities. Because we think that we're doing them a favor by not challenging them, but we're only holding them back from being the best that they can be. And so it's this polite help and sympathy really limits opportunities, and we have to really be mindful of that. And so the other good thing about mentoring is that it yields significant financial results. And I don't think that that is something that a lot of partners, in particular in law firms, really have an understanding of. So there was a study done that showed that compared the career progress of approximately 1,000 employees over a 5-year period at Sun Microsystems. And both mentors and mentees were approximately 20% more likely to get a raise than people who did not participate in the mentoring program. 25% of mentees and 28% of mentors received a raise versus only 5% of managers who were not mentors. Employees who received mentoring were promoted 5 times more often than people who did not have mentors. And mentors were 6 times more likely to have been promoted to a bigger job. So you have a real incentive to be a mentor. You'll have a much bigger job and make a lot more money. So retention rates increased to 67% for mentors and 72% for mentees, because when mentees know that people care about them and they feel valued, they will work harder for you. And I have seen this, without asking, they will come to your age. And so better retention rates saved Sun Microsystems $6.7 million that would otherwise have been spent on replacing employees. And so non-financial rewards, we like to talk about financial rewards, but I talked to Peter on the way down today about why did your firm do what we did? This was a different iteration. And we took a survey of the top management in my firm at the time, and they just said they thought it was the right thing to do. And so, you don't get that a lot, and of course that was also 11 years ago. But non-financial rewards of mentoring are also extremely significant. To me, one of the biggest gifts that I can give is seeing the benefits of some of those who you have mentored, or seeing that they have listened to some of the things that you said, and they've been encouraged to be like you. So when I visit the Boys and Girls Clubs, when we have a mid-year meeting or an annual meeting, I try to bring several of them to the big meetings that the ABA is having. So they won't just see me, but they will see several other lawyers that learn about different practices of law. And so many of them had no interest in going to law school because they didn't know. They didn't know what lawyers did, or they thought all lawyers had to go to court. And so many of them, since I started doing this my year as president-elect, have said that they're changing their majors. They're thinking about going to law school, and they're thinking about careers in law. And if you could just hear the questions. And the other good thing is that when I go to the Boys and Girls Club, I take young lawyers with me, and I sort of say to them in the presence of the directors of the Boys and Girls Club, I know these young lawyers want to continue a relationship at the Boys and Girls Club, and usually they do it voluntarily so that the mentoring can continue and so that some of these kids will know that they have an opportunity in life. And so when we serve as mentors, we honor a great legacy that we have as both lawyers and leaders. And we recognize those who preceded us, who gave us an opportunity, and who mentored us, whether they did it willingly or unwillingly, or not unwillingly, but without knowledge. And so I know that I've had several people to mentor me who don't have a clue. And several years later, I've told them how they mentored me, and they looked at me like sort of I was a little nutty, but they did. And so sometimes, I call it legalized stalking. If you see someone who you think that you can benefit from, you sort of follow that person, you see what they're interested in. And I still do that because people still continue to mentor me because I need it. I would not be able to get through some of the days, there are issues that come up. I will call Dennis Archer, or I will call someone to say, when you were president, how did you handle this? And so, it never ends. It's an evolving process. It's something that we should all be engaged in. So I am just really pleased that this organization exists. And I have to confess, I didn't know so much about it before I was asked to come to speak, but I'm glad that you thought that I was a natural, because I think mentoring is critical to everything that we do. Everybody should be involved in it, and in order to be a more welcoming profession, all of us have to engage in the mentoring process. It does not matter what the person looks like, what their gender, level of ability. They could be disabled people, anyone. We all have a duty because someone along the way has mentored us, and we have an obligation to pay it forward. Thank you very much.